walking to work and all of a sudden I see a jet crash.
Never forget.
These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. But they have failed. Our country is strong.
On one of America's darkest days,
Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America.
we came together.
None of us will ever forget this day. Yet we go forward to defend freedom and all that is good and just in our world.
Now, let's continue that mission, keeping the memory alive 20 years later, still united as one. Right in the heart of downtown Greensboro is a permanent reminder of the day that forever changed the Triad, the country, the world. I'm Ben Briscoe. We're going to be looking back at September 11th, 20 years later. Greensboro native sculptor Jim Gallucci took 16 tons of rubble from the World Trade Center to create this work, which now sits at the corner of South Elm and Martin Luther King Jr. Drive.
Watching what happened in New York, you feel helpless, but yet you want to do something. And I wanted to take that material and give it some meaning of what this whole day was about. For me, when 9/11 happened, it was a terrible disaster. But I saw something else. I saw something else in America that was just wonderful. It was great hope. It was great camaraderie. It was great generosity. And I saw that. I want the sculpture to be about that hope.
Jim made the piece for the first anniversary of the September 11th attacks in 2002. Before ending up here at home, it traveled the country to help the nation reflect and remember. But even without works of art, all of us will never forget September 11th, 2001. For me, I was in geometry class in high school when the principal blared over the intercom system telling teachers to turn their TVs onto the news. None of us moved for hours. We sat there in silence, in shock. The terrorist attacks happened states away from us, but that didn't matter. This was our country, our neighbors, our community. That morning, 19 al-Qaeda terrorists hijacked 4 commercial airlines on the East Coast, all of them heavy with fuel because they were supposed to be cross-country flights. At 8:46, the first plane hit the North Tower. Originally, emergency crews thought the plane must have crashed by mistake. But by 9:03, a second plane struck the South Tower. And at 9:37, a third plane ripped into the Pentagon building in Washington, D.C., cutting through 3 of the building's 5 rings. The fourth airplane crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. Investigators believe it was headed for somewhere in D.C., but the crew and passengers managed to overtake the hijackers. In all, 2,977 people were killed in the attacks. One of them from right here in our area. 38-year-old Sandy Bradshaw, originally from Climax, was a flight attendant on Flight 93, that one that crashed in Pennsylvania. When faced with the hijack situation, she bravely called United Airlines to report the emergency and describe the terrorist. Then she called her husband at home in Greensboro. He recalls Sandy saying that she and the others on the plane were trying to boil some water to throw at the hijackers. As the call ended, she reported that everyone was running up to first class. Over the years, Sandy's mom has shared her story with News 2 viewers many times. She believes it was destiny that put Sandy on the plane that awful day. There were just too many things that don't stack up otherwise.
From early teenage years, she had talked about wanting to be a flight attendant. I feel like maybe that was her role in life. He had traded the trip, which I wasn't aware of. She did that so that she could be off the end of the month. She had already done her Christmas shopping. It was all wrapped and under her bed. She called numerous people on Monday, the day before. There was a stack of cards about this high. My Mother's Day card was already in there. Her dad's birthday was in May. She had already bought a card for May. I feel that maybe she was chosen to do that job that day. There, just things in fate maybe that happen, and although, I would prefer to have her back, but I take it that this was her job in life.
Every year, Sandy's high school, Eastern Randolph, gathers to honor her. And for the 20th anniversary, WFMI News 2's Jalen Gilkey says the Randolph County Sheriff's Office also found a special way to make sure the whole county remembers Sandy.
We have put decals on the hoods of 2 of our patrol cars and on the back glass of one of our special vehicles, and also honored Sandy specifically on the door panels of the vehicles.
These decals will be on multiple Randolph County Sheriff's vehicles until the end of the year.
Well, those that knew Sandy and know of Sandy, we hope that it will remind them of 9/11 and what our country has been through, the way that we united after 9/11 happened. For those of you that don't know Sandy Bradshaw, we hope that they'll look up who Sandy Bradshaw is and realize that 9/11 was personal for everyone. And Sandy Bradshaw, being on that plane, made it personal for Randolph County.
Even Sandy's mother was there to see the new decals and to honor her daughter's legacy.
Hopefully people will remember everyone that day. I'm still amazed that I run into people in North Carolina that have no idea that someone that lived in North Carolina died that day. That's just kind of amazing to me. You would think they would have heard it on the news, at least locally. It's very special, and I'm, very pleased and honored that the county would do this. So.
This weekend, Sandy's mom says the whole family will be traveling up to the memorial site at the plane crash in Pennsylvania, and that they want to thank everyone for their love and support. A TRIAD man was also working in the World Trade Center when the planes hit. Tad Tadlock was on the 61st floor of the World Trade Center South Tower during the attacks. A financial advisor with Morgan Stanley at the time, he made it out.
I relive the real going through my mind just as clear as if it happened yesterday.
Tad was there in 2014 when the War Memorial in Guilford County unveiled a beam from the South Tower to forever mark the lives lost that day. The steel beam was recovered by a local company, D.H. Griffin. They helped clean up what was left of the World Trade Center after the attacks.
I hope it's a celebration of our country, our people, and the American spirit.
Today, the site of the World Trade Center attack is a museum and memorial, ran with love by people who have deep ties to those who lost their lives. Elise Preston spoke with the widow of a New York City firefighter, a hero, a husband, a father.
One of the things I miss the most is just laying in bed with my head on his shoulder, just talking away.
Ann Van Hein's husband was a New York City firefighter, one of the 343 FDNY responders who died in the attack on the World Trade Center.
Now when I look at these names, I know they're family members.
For Bruce Van Hein, being a firefighter was a childhood dream.
Squad 41 lost everyone on duty that day. They lost all 6 firefighters. They went into Building 2 and got pretty high up, started to bring civilians down, and then they were killed in the collapse.
When was the last time you spoke to Bruce?
The last time I saw Bruce was Sunday, September 9th. He said, I'm blessed. And I said, why? He said, because I'm married to Miss Ann.
Now, the grandmother of 3 volunteers at the 9/11 Tribute Museum, giving more than 500 tours where Bruce died a hero. But the one day she never visits the site is the September 11th anniversary.
I don't know that I can take on the collective grief of 3,000 people.
20 years ago, Joan Master-Polo lived just a block west of the towers. She watched the attacks from her office window.
I saw both towers get struck by the planes. I was never able to make it back home.
As a volunteer for the Tribute Museum, she shares stories of both the horrors and humanity of the day.
We had over 500,000 people come here after 9/11 with only one objective. They wanted to help.
That support from both loved ones and strangers has helped Van Hine carry on as she honors her husband's memory. Make sure we never forget.
Museums like that are more important now more than ever, because 20 years later, there's a whole generation of kids who don't remember 9/11, but they still do have respect for what that terrible day means to our country and them. Going through mounds and mounds of old videotapes for the show, I found one story that really stuck with me. I think you'll see why. From 2011, here's a TRIAD teenager's take on a day she doesn't remember.
I was 3 years old on September 11, 2001. I'm now 13 years old today. I don't remember what life was like before 9/11. However, I know my life has changed because of this attack. I interviewed someone who clearly remembers the day. I also watched some videos about the attack, and my class studied some historical facts about the war on terror. My life has changed in the following 3 ways. We don't know if there will be another attack. When I'm in a tall building, I always wonder what would happen if this building was attacked like the World Trade Center. Would I know what to do? Could I get out safely and quickly? Another attack can happen at any time and any place, and I don't feel like we are prepared after this devastation.
Before you go through the metal.
Since September 11th, people are more nervous about air travel due to the planes crashing into the Twin Towers. Also, the cost to ride a plane increased, which affects the ability of families to be together, or it affects their vacations. Why did it increase? The United States of America's airline security is much bigger and more intense now. We now have to take off our shoes, put everything into a tray, and be examined by a security guard or a machine. This is key because we are even scared of being on our own ground or air. We know that America isn't invincible, and that terrifies most Americans. I know that the tower's collapse was devastating, but there are only a couple of good things that came of this. Everyone became closer, putting their lives second and other people's first. People came together and helped out one another. Before September 11th, we didn't really consider firefighters or the police as heroes. Now we respect them more and show our gratitude to their service that they show every day to our country. My life has changed so much since September 11th, and I don't even remember it.
The kids of the Triad never cease to amaze me. Now it is your turn to never forget. Keep the memory of September 11th going this weekend. There will be a special concert to honor the victims during the North Carolina Folk Festival in Greensboro. It will be near that 9/11 memorial on South Elm Street, Saturday at 5 p.m. Now, during the concert, Guilford County first responders and immediate family can get a free meal. You can RSVP for that online. Again, that event is right by the 9/11 statue we told you about earlier, a permanent reminder of a day which will live on forever in our minds and hearts. A constant voice in the back of our heads reminding Americans to stay strong, stay united.